If by the end of this here review you would like to buy your own Hiya King Ghidorah, you can do so through the link in the comment section down below. That will link you to the INS hobby listing of King Ghidorah, and if you use my coupon Hiya Ghidorah 5, you will get $5 off of your order. Thank you so much to INS Hobby for hooking me up with this figure and this coupon, and now let's get to talking about this figure.
ShinRobjira.
Yeah. It's big. Today we're going to be talking about the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic King Ghidorah from Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Finally! Right out of the rather large box, King Ghidorah is going to be standing rather large. Here is a close-up on that measurement, and let's just get into it. Enchanting is all sin, isn't he? But you know what? It gets even more enchanting. Uh-oh. No stands needed, really. And to SH Monster Arts' credit here, I can stand that thing up without stands too. So, moving on to paint and detail. Oh dear Lord Almighty, look at it. Just look at it. Take it all in, friends and neighbors of new and old ilk. This is painted, and it's painted rather whimsically as well, which I really have to give Hiya Toys credit. This was a big detractor for a lot of people with the SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah. I mean, he was mostly blank in color for the most part. Here, we have a rather colorful representation of Ghidorah. Yep, even on the back. Oh, the shading, the veins, the chipped paint that came right out of the box. Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec. This is just lovely. And the back versus the wings, it's a little on the mismatching side, just a little bit. I feel like if this was a tad darker, it would have been a little bit better, but regardless, the shading, yet again, the veins, the details within. This thing is extra strength lovely. Taking a look on Ghidorah's back, fantastic details going on here. I will say these little spikes though. Yeah, it's a bit of a complaint on my part, but when you look at everything else that is painted, maybe my hypocritical ass can excuse that. But moving onwards into the tails. Rather dark looking, but hey, look at this. I love that all the cracks in between King Ghidorah's scales, his skin or whatever, are going to be completely highlighted. And the paint on the bladed portions of his tails ain't half bad either. It beats all of it being a bland, opaque, mustardy color. These things just rock, man. No matter what side you look at them. Whew! I might actually be overly impressed by all of this. Like, overly impressed. Like, calm down, Rob, impressed. This just looks great. Although, yeah, some of the paint on the blades towards the ends, though, they're a little spotty. Some of the blades overall are a little spotty. No snarky Bandai comment from me on that one. You know what? Let me show you the undersides of the tails as well. And yes, one hand. Watch the eyeballs, Rob. One hand. Nothing. The undersides of the tails are going to match directly up with King Ghidorah's crotch and underbelly. And I really like how these were done. They're nice and dirtied up. They don't look like they don't match Ghidorah whatsoever. It kind of all just works and flows very well together. Oh man, the detail. Oh, the paint. Yeah, unfortunately I have some paint rub off on the necks, but it's not from me. It's not from me moving the figure around. Picture right here, this came directly out of the box just like this. It was actually because of the neck straps they had going across his neck and likely rubbing up against them during shipment. Bit of a questionable take there, Hiya. But at the same time, how else could you have really done it? Maybe you could have worked with the plastic clamshell a bit better. I don't know. It's a bit of a bummer, but when you look at everything else this figure has to offer, meh. In my line of work, it definitely could have been worse, but man, the paint, the detail, and yes, the heads. Taking a look at the heads here, I mean, there is just so much going on. Beady little orange eyes, black little pupils, lovely paint detailing on these very flexible horns. These I've seen a lot of complaints about just because they seem a little bent inward. They don't really fluctuate outwards like they really should. Me personally, though, it's not like a complaining point. I think they look just fine either from the side or the front. The eyes are a little wonky though, just a bit. I mean, this one feels properly centered. This one feels a little bit further down than it really needs to be. But thankfully, it's not 2014 SH Monster Arts Godzilla wonky. Yeah, that would have been a problem. I mean, Ghidorah looks pretty scary from a front-on shot like this. Rightfully so, he is the physical manifestation of extinction. And yeah, you gotta look scary if you're the physical manifestation of extinction. These teeth, however, some of them not exactly painted the best. Some of them are a little bit more gum than they are tooth. Think of that what you will, and that is somewhat present on all of the Ghidorah heads. Ichi over here be looking absolutely terrifying. Fantastic. Ugh, I love it. And I'm only just now noticing that there's some white paint on his little horns over here, while the other ones are kind of left without it. That looks cool. It's a nice little differentiation. I feel like the paint work used for his horns is around the same as the other two heads. The eyes are done up a wee bit better than the other head, and you can see some of that more gummy gum tooth going on there. But these teeth are so small, and depending on how you have this thing posed, I don't know if you're really going to notice it from the front. Everything's a bit better on the opposite side, though. Teeth and otherwise. Hey yo, Kevin do be vibing. He do have a little bit of smudge of white paint on his membrane moving into his cheeks. Kind of looks like a smear deal if you ask me, but the teeth are fine on the top end. The lower end, again, more gum than tooth. The eyes and the pupils overall look great. The horns look great. The eyes kind of feel around the same as the left head overall. This one feels properly centered. This one feels a little bit more looking down-ish, and I guess I can't complain too much. I mean, just look at how small these eyes are, especially in comparison to my finger. Very, very small. The fact that they look as good as they do is amazing to say the least. No matter what way you snap it, Ghidorah from the front, from the side, and even from the bottom is going to look absolutely intimidating. While the paint job on my copy isn't exactly what I would call perfect, chalk that up to mass production or shipping or otherwise, I still must give Hiya Toys a lot of credit. They did what we thought was nearly impossible. A fully painted and posable King Ghidorah figure that doesn't fully break the bank. I mean, this thing isn't cheap, but, you know, it's not $230 or something like that. This toe over here, however, came out a little screwed up right out of the box. And we've got this interesting red paint on the top of the feet, or that might be a very vibrant brown. It doesn't cause the foot to look mismatching in any sense to the rest of the leg. It is, however, an interesting choice, I guess I should say. Just overall, man, look at this. Paint, detail, oh. These little spikes over here will be painted. There's proper amounts of shading on the legs. The chest is going to receive some magnificent shading. The shoulder blades are. It's a cornucopia of pleasure to the eye. Now, the paint on this guy isn't perfect. It does have imperfections, and I'm willing to let the little imperfections slide just because the overall majority of the figure looks beautiful. You know, some of the paint imperfections happened during shipping. Some happened while I was trying to figure out how to move this guy into the knuckle walking mode, so I'll take a couple of hits there. But I just can't get over how great this thing looks. So in terms of detail, solid star, obviously. And in terms of paint, solid star with a sub rating of a half a star for some of the paint flubs caused by me and in shipping. A solid X for myself for forgetting to talk about the nails on the ends of his wings. Oh yeah, they're painted. They're all painted. Every last one of them. Oh yeah. Damn it, Hiya, I really don't know how you do it. I don't. This is just friggin' lovely. Alrighty, we're done with paint and detail. Let's move on over into articulation, shall we? Now, I'm sure as many of you can deduce, these necks will be segmented. From the base all the way up to the tippy tops of the head, they will be able to move out and in like so, but we don't care about that. We want to see these things spread, and spread they can. The further up you go towards the head, the more movement you'll get and be able to spread outwards. Unfortunately though, I do think this is about as far down as we are supposed to get these necks. I've heated this guy up, I've tried my best, and it really just ain't working for me. You're still going to be able to swivel them like so. I mean, you can even get Ghidorah to look behind him to a certain extent, so that's just fine. I'm really not all that bummed out about not being able to look super duper far down, to be honest. Ironically enough, that seems to be a thing with Hiya toys now. But take a look at these pieces over here on the head, will you? When you move them up, as you can see, they're going to have a bit of a curve to them, so they will aid in helping the heads look down at this particular point. Sure, it kind of looks like King Ghidorah's necks are made out of rigatoni noodles, but it's nice to know that Hiya pretty much thought of the initial movement when sculpting out the necks and everything. If I was really going to be stingy, I would say improve the neck articulation. I want to be able to look all the way down. But for what it is, being able to swivel, being able to pose the heads up all the way like this, whether you're moving them back or you're just swiveling them back, this works. This works for me. It might not work for everybody, but it definitely works. Plus, I'm also pretty happy to be able to do just that and not have the head pop right off of the figure like my SH Monster Arts copy did. I say did because I think I actually fixed it, but we'll find out more about that later. And yes, homie's horn do be broken. Compare and contrast, it do be there. And it's not just the necks that can swivel, the heads can swivel right on up here as well. Pretty sure they can go all the way around, but I don't feel like pushing it and possibly breaking it, but we're also going to have a bit of a ball joint right up here too. Each of the Ghidorah heads can open their mouths up about that far. Please be sure not to stretch the mouths too far because then the membranes are going to pop out and you won't be able to close them. Then you got to take the jaw off and then you got to do this whole finaglish thing where it's just a big pain in the butt. The tongues will be on a nice little hinge so you can move them down and then right back up, and they might end up getting stuck like that, so get yourself a toothpick. Very easy to unstick. Now as far as the tails back here go, they're your basic ball jointed segmented tails that you would see from the likes of SH Monster Arts and such. Unfortunately, somewhat like SH Monster Arts, getting these things to curve up and actually hold that pose, yeah, it doesn't happen all that often. No matter what side, at least on my copy. It might be different for other people, sure, but yeah, kind of limp and bleh. Fair note, the tips of the tails will actually arrive flattened like this, so once you apply them to Ghidorah, you're going to want to give them a little spin. Just like so. Hopefully I even have these on the correct way. I'm pretty sure I do. But yeah, there will be a ball joint back here at the tip of the tails. They will be able to swivel all the way around. And thankfully, these thorns, these horns on Ghidorah's clubbed tails are actually going to be of a softer material, so they're not going to break off, I don't think. But since they're nice and rubbery and malleable and such, I don't think you really need to worry. I do believe the tails can split apart like so. There we go. And that's definitely going to help the figure when it's standing without its stands. Moving on to the leg over here, you can rotate it pretty dang far. About over here before it's going to pop off on you. Thankfully, you can just rotate it right back around like so. No issue. You'll get a decent bend at the knee, as well as a decent bend out at the knee, including a swivel at the knee as well. You'll get a bend right here at the leg, and you'll be able to bend that right back out. You'll get a decent pivot at the ankle over here. I haven't exactly tried to swivel the ankle, so let's give it a shot. Mad Lad mode, oh yeah, we're getting a swivel down here as well. That's to be expected because it's probably a ball joint. Let's do that on camera this time. Don't worry, he's being properly propped up. Decent bend too. Oh yeah, before I forget, Ghidorah will also have a bit of an ab crunch. An articulated Ghidorah figure has an ab crunch. Right-ho! Yeah, that ab crunch is more so for the knuckle walking pose. We're getting there, I promise. What I like to do just to be safe is just, pop these wings apart, move the wing back, and then move this part back. Then we lift up the wing, and we're going to Just like that. And that's how I really go about posing the wings. It's not the most grandiose of changes, but as you can see, that wing is now being raised a bit higher. If you move the arms or wings slowly and gently enough, you can actually pose them back without having to undo them. Yet another lovely thing that Hiya does and Ban don't. I don't believe I mentioned this, but the joints over here and over here have splits down the middle of them. So you can, in fact, move both of the wing parts forward and then back. Nifty. Let's do the same for the opposite side. Move that back, move this back, and then bring the wing parts together. Straighten out these legs, and boom! Both of the wings are now resting a little bit higher for that intimidation pose that Ghidorah did. Intimidation pose, attack ready pose, whatever you want to call it. He can do it here without the help of stands too. And that's pretty much it for King Ghidorah's articulation. It's pretty much the SH Monster Arts version with one new detail, that being the ab crunch, and obviously what we're going to do with the wings right now. I do kind of wish the heads could go down a bit farther, but I'm also really glad that these heads aren't falling off, snapping off, anything like that. So articulation is gonna get, yeah, it's gonna get a solid star, for sure. Even with the necks being somewhat limiting, you can get a lot of great poses with them. And that pretty much goes for the entirety of the figure overall. You just need to have some patience, you need to know how to balance the figure out properly, be it with stands or without, whatever makes you comfortable. This figure is capable of a lot more than I was expecting. And I was expecting not as much as this, I'll say that much. Whether the figure is by itself or it's sharing your ocular space with another figure, this guy commands presence, and you can get him into more than enough poses to command that presence further. Solid star as far as posability goes. Now for my favorite part of the figure, just kidding, I friggin' hate this. Just as a heads up though, I would recommend heating this figure up before you attempt any of this. Please. Gently. Take the time to hinge them out of the way like so. Okay. This one is usually the hardest. There we go. Slowly bring the arm down. Hinge, hinge, hinge. Okay, you're gonna wanna gently do this. Gently, gently, gently. This was the piece that was giving me the most trouble. You need to slowly and lightly just bend that hinge and then turn it a little bit. So when you bring the arm down like this, the knuckles should be resting like so. Let's do the same for the other wing. Bring the heads up as far as they can go, and voila! If you did it correctly, the wings should look a little bit like this. I imagine other people will be able to do this a lot better than me, but I do think it gets the point across. You're gonna want that first finger to look a little like this once you've got them fully slouched over. My dumbass thought you just had to fold them in and they would go exactly the way you needed them to, but no, a little bit more elbow grease is indeed required. Man, I hate doing that. I really do. But the final product? Yeah, it's kind of worth it. And to be fair, I am getting a bit better at it, no thanks to some non-existent instructions from Hiya, as this is all we got. Helpful, but not helpful in the way that I needed it to be. Gotta give a lovely shout out to Figure Mania Show over here on YouTube and on Instagram. Thank you so much for helping me with these wings, my guy. I know I didn't get these perfect one-to-one, but your instructions on how to do this were a hell of a lot better than... yeah, that. Truly do appreciate it, my guy. If you guys aren't subscribed to his channel, you should have been like months ago. Hiya, please. Step-by-step moron instructions for people like me next time, please? Because god darn it, just trying to get this done even halfway right delayed this entire video by 24 hours because I didn't want to publish something that would cause people to do something wrong. And yes, it's currently the next day, separate from everything else you've already seen, but don't worry, we'll get back to that recording right about Even with the wings all scrunched up and Ghidorah either slightly hunched or fully hunched, you can still get a decent amount out of this figure while he's like this. Granted, I wouldn't recommend getting too rough with this. You don't want to scrape any more of the paint off than I did. But I really need to give Hiya credit here. Just the fact that the figure is still movable. Just the fact that more can still be done in a state where not too much more is movable. Praise is out the wazoo, fam. I'm at a loss for words. Once I finally got this going the correct way, the correct-ish way, I was surprised I could even move it at all. And yet here we are. Solid star for posability and the wing-walking mode. And now, let's move on to the one part of this video I've been looking forward to the most. Hiya versus SH Monster Arts. Mostly visually. Wow. Is it even fair to call this a comparison? Because this is night and friggin' day, guys and gals. Only now do I realize just how goofy the big heads on SH Monster Arts Ghidorah are. I mean, you look at Hiya Ghidorah and it feels properly proportioned, and then you look at SH Monster Arts Ghidorah and I never realized how horrifically goofy this thing looks with those big heads. And I know not everybody's like the craziest fan of the paint job going on the underbelly and such, but versus this two-toned mustard stain with 3 faces? There is no competition here. Zero. This might be even worse in regards to SH Monster Arts. I mean, this versus this? What in the hell was going on at Bandai? I mean, look at this face, and then just take a look at this face. You be the judge. Not to mention that the feet are completely different from one another. I'll admit the crown of horns on Ghidorah's head with the SH Monster Arts version is definitely a bit better. As stated before, the crown of horns on Hiya Ghidorah's head are a little bit more smoothened out to the side, but I would most certainly take this over this any day. Any day of the friggin' week. This is just kind of embarrassing. Ugh. Good lord. Alright, so let's compare the neck articulation. Little down, little down, little down. See how the SHMA stands. Fuck it. Alright, and alright. Well, there's that, I guess. Yeah, I think we can end this comparison off here. I think you all get the point. The original SH Monster Arts 2019 King Ghidorah, when brought over to the US, went for about $180. The Hiya Toys Ghidorah, though, is $120, and if you got it on pre-order from INS Hobby, you would have paid even less than that. Right up front, and I'm amazed. Truly. SH Monster Arts Ghidorah was $180. This was $120. Size comparisons. SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah. You know what? I'm not going to name off all of these names. If you have a question about a specific figure, just let me know with a timestamp down below. This guy is huge. He is going to demand crazy presence on your shelves, if you even have room for him, that is. I know I sure as heck don't, but Lord help me, I'm going to make it work. I am so beyond impressed with the paint, the detail, the size, the articulation, even though trying to get this guy into wing walking mode absolutely destroyed me from the inside out. Chalk it up to stupidity, but yeah. Hiya King Ghidorah. One of the best figures of the year. Honestly, I really could have done without the knuckle walking thing, but I'm glad that it's an option. And I'm glad that this video is finally done and you can all enjoy it. I have been ShinRobjira. I do so hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to check out my social media, including my Patreon, where for $1 a month you'll get access to all my early content as I make it. And when next we meet, it's either the new Movie Monster Series -1 Goji or Figma Dread version Samus. Either way, can't wait. See you then. Peace.